No one in Willow Creek would ever forget the night it happened. The sky itself seemed unsettled, swollen with storm clouds that blotted out the moon, pressing the landscape into uneasy shadow. In the hush before everything unraveled, the world held its breath, as if even the wind sensed a betrayal in the making. Victoria Grant sat in the driver's seat of her black Range Rover, hands shaking as she stared into the rain-lashed dark. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, but she pressed her lips together, her mind replaying the same mantra over and over. You have no choice. You have no choice. In the back seat, her twin daughters lay slumped against each other, their breaths shallow, skin damp with sweat. Avery's arm was flung protectively around Isla, even in unconsciousness, while Isla's thin fingers twitched in some troubled dream. Victoria winced, a fresh wave of shame rising in her throat. She parked beside the swollen river, headlights flickering off slick rocks and cold, rippling water. This was where she'd chosen to do it. Far from the city, far from her past, far from anyone who might ask why. She reached for the vial in her coat pocket, hands trembling so badly she almost dropped it. She stared at her own reflection in the rearview mirror, searching for the mother she used to be, but only saw the desperate stranger she'd become. Thunder cracked. Victoria blinked hard, fighting tears as she slid out of the car and pulled the girls into her arms, one by one. Avery's body was heavier, all bone and muscle, stubborn even now, while Isla felt so fragile she feared the girl might break if she squeezed too tight. "I'm sorry," Victoria whispered, voice nearly drowned by the wind. "I'm so sorry." She bundled them into the little aluminum boat waiting at the river's edge, tucking a blanket around their small bodies, brushing wet hair from their foreheads. Her own breath shuddered. There would be no goodbyes. Not for her. She pushed the boat into the current, boots sliding in the slick mud, heart pounding as water splashed against her calves. The river seized the boat and spun it away from shore, carrying her daughters into the blackness. What have I done? She stood there, rain soaking through her coat, watching as the boat vanished. For a moment, the world held still, suspended between one heartbeat and the next. Then the storm broke for real, wind shrieking, rain lashing sideways, and Victoria turned and ran, sobs ripped from her throat, swallowed by the storm. Out on the water, Avery blinked awake to a world that made no sense. The river rocked beneath her, cold spray in her face, the roar of the storm drowning all else. She reached for Isla, panic spiking in her chest. "Isla! Isla!" Her sister didn't answer, lips moving in some silent dream. Avery gathered Isla against her, holding tight as the boat slammed into a hidden log, spinning wildly. Water sloshed over the sides. "No! No!" Lightning split the sky, revealing twisted tree limbs along the shore, sharp rocks jutting from the dark water. The boat lurched, the oars lost to the river hours before. Every sound felt sharper, every second stretched thin with terror. Avery tried to shout, but the wind tore the words from her mouth. All she could do was cling to Isla, shielding her from the worst of the spray, praying for something, anything, to save them. The river roared, the boat pitched, and for one terrible moment Avery thought they would tip over completely. Isla whimpered, waking briefly, her blue eyes huge in the lightning's glare. "I'm scared. I know. Hold on, okay? Please, Isla, just hold on." Thunder rolled. The boat spun again, caught in a swirling eddy. Avery fought to keep her balance, to keep Isla upright. The cold bit through her soaked clothes, teeth chattering, heart thudding with desperate hope. She scanned the shadowy banks, searching for a sign of safety, of land, of anything but the endless, churning water. Then, as if conjured from some fevered dream, A shape appeared on the far bank, white, luminous, eyes catching the stormlight, impossibly huge and wild. A horse, Avery thought, but no horse she'd ever seen. The creature raised its head, mane whipping in the wind, nostrils flaring as it stared straight at them. "Isla, do you see?" But Isla's head lolled, eyelids fluttering. The white mare plunged into the river without hesitation. Water exploded around her as she swam, hooves churning, muscles bunching with every powerful stroke. Avery's breath caught in her throat. Was she hallucinating? Was this the end? The mare reached the boat, teeth latching onto the frayed mooring line, tugging them toward shore. Avery held Isla close, eyes never leaving the ghostly horse. Each second felt like a lifetime. The boat scraped against pebbles and silt, and the mare reared up, muscles rippling, driving back a shadowy figure that had emerged among the trees. For a heartbeat, Avery thought she saw another person, an old man, hunched and watching from behind the trunk. But when lightning flashed again, the figure was gone. The horse nuzzled Avery's shoulder. Her breath warm and real, Avery buried her face in Isla's hair, tears mingling with the rain. "We're alive. We're alive." The mare waited until Avery and Isla had scrambled onto the muddy bank, then turned and disappeared into the darkness, mane glimmering silver beneath the storm. The twins huddled together beneath the trees, shivering, hearts pounding, rain hammering down as the world went silent. Avery stared into the dark, remembering the impossible sight. The wild white mare, savior from the river. She pressed her forehead to Isla's, whispering a promise she wasn't sure she could keep. "I'll protect you, Isla. I swear it. No matter what happens, I'll never let anyone hurt you again." Above them, the storm finally began to break, clouds parting just enough to let a sliver of moonlight fall across the river. Somewhere in the darkness, the white mare watched, her presence lingering in the trembling air. And so began the legend of the white mare of Willow Creek, on a night when secrets, love, and betrayal collided beneath a furious sky. The first pale light of dawn crept over Willow Creek, turning the sodden fields silver and gray. Anna Bennett woke with a jolt, the same way she had every morning since grief took up residence in her bones. Her husband, Jean, was already up, the quiet sounds of his old blues guitar drifting in from the porch, a comfort in a world grown unfamiliar and raw. She pulled on her boots, rubbing sleep from her eyes as she gazed through the kitchen window. Rain dripped from the eaves, but the storm had finally loosened its grip. Anna sighed, her heart heavy with memories of the son she and Jean had lost, a wound that never truly healed. She stepped outside, letting the chill wake her fully. That was when she heard it, a strange sound, part whimper, part whisper, carried on the wind from the riverbank. She froze, every sense sharpening, the hair on her arms prickled. Something was out there, something more than the usual raccoon or stray dog. Anna hurried toward the sound, boots squelching in the wet grass. As she drew near the trees, she spotted movement, two small shapes huddled together, trembling beneath a thin, rain-soaked blanket. Anna's heart stumbled. She rushed forward, dropping to her knees in the mud. The girls were pale, soaked to the bone, their lips blue. One, a little older, had her arms wrapped protectively around the other, who looked barely conscious. "Hey, sweethearts, it's okay. You're safe now." The older girl, Avery, flinched at her touch but didn't pull away. The younger one, Isla, whimpered, eyes glassy with fever. Anna waved her arms, calling for Jun. He came running, alarm etched on his face. Together they scooped up the girls, carrying them gently toward the warmth of their little farmhouse. Anna's heart ached with fear and wonder. Where had these children come from? Why were they alone out here at dawn? Inside, John kindled the stove, filling the kitchen with golden heat. Anna wrapped the girls in thick quilts, humming softly, trying to chase away their shivers. Avery stared at her with fierce suspicion, refusing to speak. Isla drifted in and out of fevered dreams, murmuring fragments of music, snatches of lullabies. Anna looked to Jean, worry tightening her voice. "We need a doctor." John nodded, but before he could reach for the phone, Isla's voice, thin and tremulous, floated through the room. "Mama, please, don't leave." Anna's breath caught in her chest. She sat beside Isla, stroking her hair, humming an old lullaby she'd sung to her own child. The notes seemed to soothe Isla, her breathing deepening, the tension in her tiny frame easing. Avery watched every move, her eyes bright with both hope and terror. It wasn't long before the story spread. News in Willow Creek traveled like wildfire, especially when it was strange. Edith, the town's sharp-eyed librarian, was the first to arrive, curiosity blazing in her step. Not long after, Pastor Ruth showed up, hands full of fresh bread and a heart brimming with quiet kindness. Edith was already whispering about a ghost horse, a wild white mare seen by an early-rising fisherman down by the water. She swore the animal had glowed in the storm, leading the girls to safety. "A spirit horse, Anna. Can you imagine?" John rolled his eyes, but Anna just squeezed his hand. Something miraculous had happened. She could feel it in her bones, but not everyone in town believed in miracles. By noon, a crowd had gathered outside the Bennett's home. Some neighbors brought food, warm clothes, and gentle words, but others, wary and hard-eyed, stood back, muttering about trouble and secrets. Sheriff Talbot knocked on the door, hat in hand, asking questions. Anna answered as best she could, shielding the girls with her own body, refusing to let anyone take them away. The fever broke late that afternoon, thanks to Anna's music and Ruth's careful tending. Isla blinked up at Anna, confusion giving way to gratitude. "Thank you for the song." Anna smiled, tears stinging her eyes. Jean brought his guitar and played a soft tune, filling the little house with warmth that seeped into every corner. Avery, seeing Isla relax for the first time since the river, let herself breathe. Still, the girls refused to speak about where they came from. Avery flinched whenever the sheriff's name was mentioned, glancing at the windows, always listening for trouble. Jean tried to make them laugh, juggling apples and making silly faces, but Avery only half smiled, her guard never dropping. As dusk settled, Anna caught sight of movement at the edge of their property, a flash of white, almost too quick to see. She stepped outside, heart pounding. There, standing in the twilight, was the wild white mare. The animal regarded Anna with deep, intelligent eyes, then turned and vanished into the trees. Anna returned to the house, a strange hope blooming in her chest. She knelt beside Avery and Isla, promising them they were safe. "No one will hurt you here, I promise. Not as long as I have breath in my body." Avery nodded, just once, eyes shining with unshed tears. Night fell quietly over Willow Creek, but the story was already racing through town. Some neighbors, hearts softened by the miracle, left gifts on the porch: pies, fresh eggs, children's books. Others circled their wagons, whispering about what kind of mother would let her daughters drift alone in the dark. Suspicion and hope tangled together in the air, as fragile as the first morning frost. Inside the Bennett home, the twins slept at last. Isla's fever cooled, Avery's hand never leaving her sister's. Anna and Jean watched over them, holding each other in the lamplight, feeling, just for a moment, that maybe, just maybe, their house was a home again. Outside, somewhere in the fields, the white mare lifted her head to the moon and kept silent vigil. The miracle at dawn had brought the town together, but beneath the wonder, deeper secrets waited, and the night was far from over. For days, the Bennetts' farmhouse thrummed with the delicate tension of recovery. The world outside seemed to fade away, muffled by rain and wind, as if the house itself was guarding a secret. Anna moved through each day with careful tenderness, her grief softening into fierce purpose. The lost children who had washed up on her doorstep were no longer strangers. They were a new rhythm in her life, their laughter and pain woven into the fabric of her home. Each morning, Anna would find Avery already awake, sitting by the window, eyes scanning the tree line as if searching for the first flash of white. Avery rarely spoke about that night on the river, but every now and then, Anna would catch her tracing silent shapes on the cold glass, lips moving with promises only she could hear. Isla, still weak, gravitated toward the old upright piano in the living room. Her hands, delicate and thin, danced over the yellowed keys, coaxing out hesitant melodies. At first, it was simple tunes, fragments of lullabies, half-remembered songs from another life. Anna, who had always believed in music's healing, watched in awe as Isla's eyes brightened each time a chord rang out clear and true. Sometimes Anna would sit beside her, adding a gentle harmony or humming along, letting the music fill the empty spaces left by grief. John, meanwhile, took charge of the more practical care. He taught Avery how to feed the chickens, showed her how to split wood, and let her help with small repairs around the property. He treated her not like a guest, but like a capable helper, and Avery responded with cautious pride. Still, every unexpected sound, a car backfiring, a branch tapping the window, would make her stiffen, her gaze darting to Isla. John noticed but never pressed her. Instead, he offered steady, wordless comfort, letting Avery find her footing at her own pace. One afternoon, Edith arrived, arms laden with library books and cookies wrapped in wax paper. She dropped onto the old sofa with a theatrical sigh. "I brought every adventure I could find. And chocolate chip, of course. The only medicine worth a lick." Avery hesitated, but Isla grinned, the first real smile Anna had seen from her. Edith's gentle questions and quick wit seemed to unravel some of Avery's reserve. She even joined in, quietly at first, as Edith read aloud stories of girls who tamed dragons and outwitted thieves. For a little while, the world was only books and music and the warmth of a family in the making. Pastor Ruth stopped by each evening, her presence calm and grounding. She never pried, never demanded answers the girls weren't ready to give. Instead, she offered prayers, stories of kindness and resilience, and taught Isla how to braid wildflowers into crowns. Ruth would listen for hours as Isla played the piano, humming along with melodies both old and new. She often said with a knowing smile, "Sometimes, when we can't say what's in our hearts, music finds the words for us." Outside, the wild white mare became an almost mythical presence. Each night, Avery would slip quietly to the porch, hoping to catch a glimpse. She didn't have to wait long. As the stars began to flicker in the Montana sky, the mare would appear, sometimes just a flash of white between the aspens, sometimes bold as sunrise, standing at the edge of the yard. The horse never let anyone close except Avery. One night, Anna watched as Avery approached the mare with an outstretched hand, whispering something the wind carried away. The mare bowed her head, letting Avery stroke her neck for just a moment before she vanished into the shadows. It was as if the animal knew Avery's pain and promised, in her wild way, to share the burden. As days slipped by, the girl's wounds began to heal, though the scars ran deep. Isla's color returned, her laughter bubbling up during silly moments with Jun, or when Anna played an off-key note on the piano. She took to painting at the kitchen table, swirling scenes of wild horses and tangled rivers, her fears easing into art. Avery became bolder, her voice steadier, but the nightmares lingered. Some nights, Anna would find her standing in the hallway, fists clenched, eyes haunted. "It's just a dream, honey. You're safe here." Avery would nod, but Anna knew it wasn't so simple. Safety was a promise the world had broken before. Still, the little family stitched themselves together, moment by fragile moment. There were new rituals: morning tea, evening music, Sunday afternoons reading in the sun-dappled living room. Anna, Jean, Edith, and Ruth became a protective circle around the twins, creating space for their hearts to mend. Outside, the world kept moving, neighbors gossiping, the sheriff's questions lingering. But inside, healing had begun. One evening, as rain pattered softly on the tin roof, Avery finally spoke about the river. She sat curled beside Isla, voice low and steady. "I thought we were going to die. But then she came. The white mare. I don't know how she found us, but I saw her eyes. She was so real." Anna listened, her heart breaking and swelling all at once. She placed a gentle hand on Avery's shoulder. "Sometimes, the wildest miracles are the ones we need most." Isla took Avery's hand, squeezing tight. "I heard music that night, like you were singing to me, even though you were far away." Anna felt tears prick her eyes. She didn't try to explain it. Some things she knew were beyond understanding. That night, as the house grew quiet and the world outside held its breath, the white mare returned once more. Avery stood on the porch, watching the moonlight glint on her coat, and whispered, "I'll never forget what you did. I promise I'll be brave for Isla, just like you were brave for us." And somewhere in the dark, the mare's ears flicked, her silhouette dissolving into the shadows, silent, watchful, a guardian of secrets and second chances. Inside, the Bennetts slept, the music of healing drifting through their dreams, while outside, Willow Creek waited for the next miracle to unfold. Morning in Willow Creek brought a pale, expectant light. Anna found herself awake before sunrise, standing at the kitchen window, watching mist curl above the river. She sipped her tea in silence. The world hushed as if it too was holding its breath, waiting for answers. Avery and Isla had grown stronger. Avery, ever vigilant, moved through the house with purpose, brushing the horses, feeding the chickens, learning how to patch a fence with John's steady guidance. Isla painted quietly at the kitchen table, capturing wild horses and swirling water with careful, gentle strokes. But beneath the surface, both girls carried questions that clung to them like morning dew. Anna saw it in the way Avery watched the road, and how Isla's eyes would lose focus, drifting off to some secret place. That morning, Edith arrived with a stack of old photographs, her eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "I've been looking through town records, Anna. I have a feeling about these girls, but I need you to see something." Anna welcomed Edith inside. Over cups of strong coffee, they spread the photographs and documents across the kitchen table. There were old news clippings about missing children, estate auctions, and a faded photo of a young woman with striking blue eyes, a mirror image of Avery and Isla. "That's Evelyn LeClaire, right?" Edith asked softly. Anna nodded, a chill sliding down her spine. "Evelyn LeClaire. the missing heiress from Helena, vanished years ago under mysterious circumstances. She had always seemed like a story from another world, a figure from newspapers, not someone who might be tied to the girls sleeping in Anna's spare room. Edith continued, voice low and urgent. I spoke to a woman at the county library. She remembered Evelyn wearing a unique scarf, silk, embroidered with wildflowers. Anna, I found something in Isla's belongings. You need to see this. She pulled out a small, rumpled scarf. Anna's hands trembled as she traced the embroidery. It matched the photo exactly. Alongside it was a silver bracelet, tiny letters engraved inside. To Isla, love Mama. Anna's heart pounded. She glanced at Edith, fear and hope warring in her eyes. Do you think their mother is Evelyn? It makes sense, Anna, but then why are they here? And why all the secrecy? The answer hovered just out of reach, a shadow in the corner of the room. That afternoon, Anna found Avery sitting beneath the willow tree, braiding clover into a chain for Isla's hair. She approached carefully, heart pounding. Avery, honey, do you remember anything about your mother? Or about how you ended up by the river? Avery hesitated. She squeezed Isla's hand, her jaw working as she fought to find the words. She told us to be brave. She said we'd go on a little trip, just the three of us. But we never made it. There was a lady with cold eyes. She took us away from Mama. Isla shivered, pressing closer to her sister. I remember music, and then everything got quiet. Anna's heart broke. She drew both girls close, promising they were safe. But inside, she burned with new resolve. The woman with cold eyes, the broken family. Someone had orchestrated all of this, and Anna intended to find out who. That night, after the girls fell asleep, Anna and Edith pored over every clue. They called Pastor Ruth, who listened gravely and offered the number of a friend in Helena, a reporter who had covered the LeClaire disappearance. Anna dialed, voice shaking. She recounted the story, leaving out details that might endanger the girls, but giving enough to raise alarm. It matches some rumors, the reporter said, voice tense. Evelyn LeClaire's twin sister, Victoria Grant, has taken over all the family assets. Some say Evelyn was forced out, even threatened. The twins could be in real danger. Anna hung up, feeling the weight of the world settle on her shoulders. She relayed everything to Jean, Edith, and Ruth as they gathered in the living room, a quiet storm of worry brewing between them. We need to protect them, Anna insisted. If what that reporter said is true, someone could come looking for these girls. We can't let them be found by the wrong people. Jean nodded. We keep them here, at least until we know who we can trust. But Edith, always the realist, looked troubled. What if the sheriff comes back with more questions? What if Victoria Grant herself sends someone? A cold wind rattled the windows. The Bennetts knew they were in over their heads, but they also knew there was no going back. Their home had become a sanctuary, a last outpost against secrets that threatened to shatter lives. Meanwhile, news of the spirit horse and the miracle twins spread faster than wildfire. Some townsfolk brought fresh bread and hand-me-down sweaters, quietly signaling support. Others kept their distance, eyes narrowed, muttering about bad luck and old grudges. The Bennetts tried to keep things normal, but tension laced the air like the faintest tremor before a storm. One evening, Anna watched Avery brushing Solace under the sycamore tree. The mare nickered softly, nudging Avery's shoulder as if offering comfort. She always knows when we're scared, Avery whispered. She was there the night Mama disappeared. Anna hugged her, fierce and protective. You're not alone now, sweetheart. Not ever again. Inside, Edith sat with Isla, teaching her how to crack a secret code she'd found scrawled in the margin of an old book. Isla giggled, the fear in her eyes receding, if only for a moment. That night, Anna stood at the window, watching the shadows lengthen. Somewhere, someone knew the truth about Avery and Isla, and somewhere out there, Victoria Grant was hiding secrets dangerous enough to break a family in two. But as the wind stirred the willows and Solace's silhouette grazed against the moonlit grass, Anna made a vow. She would not let darkness win. Not in this house. Not in Willow Creek. The uneasy peace at the Bennett's farmhouse didn't last. As the Montana wind grew sharper and the days shortened, a shadow began to fall across Willow Creek. It arrived first as rumor, strange questions asked at the hardware store, a black SUV seen idling at the far end of Main Street, phone calls that went quiet when answered. But Anna's intuition had grown razor-sharp since the twins arrived, and the hair on her neck prickled every time the phone rang, or headlights swept across their drive after dark. One evening, as Anna washed dishes by the kitchen window, she spotted a tall, thin man in a gray suit standing at the edge of their property, barely visible in the dusk. He did not move toward the house. He simply stood, watching, hands behind his back, as if measuring the distance. Anna's hand tightened on the dish towel. When she blinked, the man was gone. She told Jean, her voice barely above a whisper, and they both agreed to keep the doors locked and the girls closer than ever. 2 days later, the stranger showed himself. He walked straight into the center of Willow Creek, his suit too crisp for Montana, his eyes too cold. He introduced himself to Sheriff Talbot as Mr. Crane, a private security consultant, hired by Victoria Grant to investigate the disappearance of her beloved nieces. The sheriff, unused to city manners, bristled at Crane's polished tone, but he listened all the same. Mr. Crane's smile was thin and quick. The news traveled fast. At the grocery, Edith heard it from behind the counter, and by the time she reached the Bennett's door, her nerves were jangling. "He's here, Anna. Victoria Grant's man. He's asking about the girls. He says he's concerned for their welfare. But I saw the way he looked at Mrs. Collins' son when the boy lied to him. Like he was peeling him open just by staring." Anna felt her chest tighten. "We can't let him near Avery or Isla." That night, Jean put the old hunting rifle on the mantel, just in case, and Pastor Ruth said an extra prayer as she left, pausing at the front steps to press a tiny silver cross into Anna's palm. "Fear is a shadow, Anna, but you have more light than you know." Avery sensed the shift in the house. She began sleeping on the floor beside Isla's bed, every creak in the hallway sending her bolt upright. Isla, picking up on her sister's fear, grew quieter, her paintings turning dark, horses running from faceless men, storm clouds blotting out the sun. Anna tried to soothe them, but the threat was real and growing. It wasn't long before Mr. Crane began showing up in unexpected places. At the church bake sale, he lingered near the playground, eyes sweeping over every child. At the library, Edith caught him rifling through old yearbooks. He visited the sheriff daily, pressing for information. Townsfolk who once brought casseroles now crossed the street when they saw Anna, afraid of being seen as involved. Only a handful, Edith, Ruth, and a stoic neighbor named Tom, continued to stand by the Bennetts, delivering groceries in the dead of night or slipping notes of encouragement beneath their door. The worst moment came one gray afternoon. Anna was collecting eggs from the coop when she felt someone watching her. She turned to see Mr. Crane, not 30 feet away, hands in his pockets, smiling like a cat who'd found a trapped bird. "You have lovely land, Mrs. Bennett. Very peaceful. I hope nothing disturbs that peace." His voice was soft, but the threat behind it was unmistakable. Anna stood her ground, chin lifted. "This is private property. Leave." Crane tilted his head, eyes narrowing. "I'll leave for now. But let me be clear, Mrs. Bennet. Those girls are the legal concern of Miss Victoria Grant. She misses her nieces terribly. I'd hate for anything unfortunate to happen to you or your husband. If you interfere..." Anna's blood ran cold. He turned and walked away, boots crunching on gravel. She watched until he was gone, heart pounding. That night, she told Jean and Edith everything, her hands shaking as she repeated Crane's words. Avery overheard, and Anna found her on the porch, fists clenched, tears streaking her face. "He threatened you." Anna knelt beside her, wrapping Avery in her arms. "He tried. But he won't win, not while I'm breathing." But the tension in town was rising. Anonymous notes began appearing in the mailbox. "Protect your family. Send the girls away. You're putting us all in danger." The phone rang at all hours. Silence on the other end. The lights flickered at night, and the dog barked at shadows. It felt as though the whole town was holding its breath, waiting for something to snap. One evening, while Anna played quiet chords on the piano for Isla, a rock smashed through the front window. Glass exploded across the floor. John rushed outside, shotgun in hand, but whoever did it was long gone, so Ruth arrived within minutes, cradling Isla and murmuring comfort, while Anna swept up the glass, her jaw set with resolve. "This is our home. We're not leaving." That night, Avery dreamed of the river again. Dark water, storm clouds, the white mare galloping through the shallows. But this time, the shadow that followed was wearing a suit and a thin, cold smile. In the days that followed, Anna and Jean considered every option: run, hide, fight. But no matter what, Anna refused to give up the girls to the very people who had shattered their lives. As the sun set each evening, the wild mare would appear at the edge of the field, silent and watchful, a living promise that courage sometimes comes in the unlikeliest forms. The shadows had returned to Willow Creek, but in the Bennet house, love was a shield, and the determination to protect Avery and Isla burned brighter than any fear. As winter crept closer and shadows lengthened across Willow Creek, the Bennets realized they could no longer rely solely on their small circle of friends for protection. The threat of Mr. Crane loomed larger by the day, his presence seeping into every corner of town. Anna knew it was time to act, not just to hide, but to fight back and to uncover the truth once and for all. It started with a plan over the kitchen table late at night, after the twins had gone to sleep. Anna, Jean, Edith, and Pastor Ruth gathered, their faces lit by a single lamp. John spoke first, his hands clenched on the tabletop. "We can't wait for Crane to make the next move. We need allies, real ones." Edith nodded, flipping through a stack of old records and articles she'd brought from the library. "If the Leclerc family's involved, we need someone who can stand up to Victoria Grant." I did some digging. Evelyn Leclerc had a sister, Rebecca, estranged for years but still in Montana. She's a lawyer now. Maybe she could help. Anna's hope flickered. She had never met Rebecca Leclerc, but if anyone could stand up to Victoria, it was family. "How do we reach her?" Anna asked. "Leave that to me," Edith said, her eyes bright with determination. "I still have contacts in Helena. I'll make the call." Pastor Ruth leaned in, her voice steady. "In the meantime, we need to keep the girls safe and gather evidence. The sheriff's no use, but there are people in town who believe us. We just need to bring them together." For the next several days, the Bennets operated with a new sense of urgency. Anna and Jean kept the girls close. never letting them out of sight. Avery sensed the tension and doubled down on protecting Isla, staying awake late into the night, always listening for footsteps in the hallway. Edith worked her magic in the background. She called in a favor with a former classmate in Helena, who agreed to reach out to Rebecca. She also spent hours poring over the box of Evelyn's belongings Anna had found. A few letters, a broken locket, the embroidered scarf, and most curiously, a faded diary with cryptic entries and strings of numbers scrawled in the margins. One chilly afternoon, while Isla napped on the couch and Avery helped Jean mend a fence, Edith brought the diary to Anna. "I think there's something in here," she whispered. "Look at this code. It's a cipher. Evelyn's way of hiding something. Maybe evidence of what Victoria was planning." Anna studied the pages, heart racing. The entries hinted at fear and suspicion. A woman who knew she was being watched, who feared for her life and her daughter's. She wrote about hidden assets, secret meetings, and a plan to protect Avery and Isla from someone she called the usurper. In the margins, Edith found names, dates, and a cryptic reference to a safety deposit box. "If we can break this code," Edith said, "we might find proof, enough to expose Victoria and keep the girls safe for good." Meanwhile, Pastor Ruth quietly rallied the few townspeople they could trust. She invited them to the church under the pretense of organizing a holiday drive for at-risk kids. Once there, she spoke plainly. The Bennetts needed help. Some people hesitated, afraid of Crane's threats, but others nodded grimly. Tom, the stoic neighbor, volunteered to keep watch at night, and Mrs. Hernandez, the baker, started sending food and coded messages. Finally, word came from Helena. Rebecca LeClaire was willing to help, but she needed the twins at her family estate, Willow Hollow, where she could guarantee their safety and legal rights. She urged Anna to bring Avery and Isla as soon as possible. "Victoria's lawyers are already making moves," Rebecca warned over the phone, her voice brisk but kind. "If they file for custody, it'll be nearly impossible to keep the girls safe. But I have evidence, and the courts will listen if we act fast. Come to Willow Hollow tonight. I'll be waiting." Anna's heart pounded. She looked at Jean, Edith, and Ruth, weighing the risks. "It's the only way," John said. "We can't stay here forever," so they set their plan in motion. That night, after supper, Anna and Jean packed bags for the girls, tucking in their most precious things, a favorite book, a painting, Isla's tiny silver bracelet. John filled the truck with gas, checked the tires, and hid it in the barn until they were ready. Edith and Anna stayed up late, working through the code in Evelyn's diary. Piece by piece, they unraveled it. Dates matching wire transfers, initials tied to shell companies, and finally, a hidden note. "Key in the hollow willow. Evidence will set them free." Avery and Isla sat in the living room, anxiety clear on their faces as the adults hurried through the house. "Are we leaving?" Avery whispered. Anna knelt and took both girls in her arms. "We're going somewhere safe. You're going to meet someone who cares about you. We have to be brave just a little longer." The girls nodded. Outside, the wind howled, and thunder rumbled far off in the mountains. As midnight approached, they moved quickly and quietly. Tom kept watch by the road, signaling when the black SUV finally rolled past, Mr. Crane's silhouette briefly visible in the headlights. Once the coast was clear, Anna and Jean hustled Avery and Isla into the truck. Edith climbed in beside them, clutching the diary and a bundle of documents. Pastor Ruth pressed her hand against the window, whispering a blessing as the truck rolled away. But just as they pulled out, a white shape emerged from the darkness. Solace, the wild mare, nostrils flaring, mane glowing in the moonlight. She moved alongside the truck, leading the way down the old forest road. Avery leaned out the window, breathless. "She's showing us the way." Anna felt hope blossom, fragile but fierce as the Bennetts followed Solace toward Willow Hollow, and whatever fate awaited them at the end of the night. The headlights carved narrow tunnels through the black Montana night as Anna steered the pickup down the winding forest road. Tension filled the cab like a storm about to break. Avery pressed close to Isla in the back seat, John's hand never leaving Anna's shoulder, Edith clutching the diary and documents like a lifeline. Outside, Solace's ghostly white form darted just ahead, her mane flowing silver under the moonlight. For every mile that slipped beneath their tires, the Bennetts felt hope sharpen and fear tighten its grip. The road twisted deeper into the woods. Pine boughs brushed the windshield. Shadows flickered and danced in the headlights. Isla shivered, glancing nervously from Avery to Anna. "Is it much farther?" "Almost there, sweetheart," Anna murmured, forcing a smile. She kept one eye on Solace and one ear tuned to the engine's every sound. The trees pressed closer, their branches arching overhead to form a dark cathedral. In the tense hush, even the twins' breathing seemed loud. Suddenly, Solace stopped dead in the middle of the road, ears pricked, muscles quivering. Anna hit the brakes. Jean peered into the dark. "What is it?" But before anyone could answer, headlights exploded behind them, 2, 3, 4 vehicles, fanning out to block the way back. Shadows spilled from the trees, figures in black jackets, their faces half masked. Mr. Crane stepped into the glare, his suit crisp, his smile colder than ever. "Going somewhere, Mrs. Bennett?" he called, voice echoing through the trees. Anna's heart hammered. Jean reached for the tire iron under his seat. Avery felt Isla's hand slip into hers, cold and trembling. Crane moved closer, his men spreading out, flashlights sweeping the forest. Anna's mind raced. If they gave up now, everything was lost. The girls, the evidence, Evelyn's hope for justice. "Get out of the truck. No one needs to get hurt," Crane ordered, his voice steel. Solace let out a piercing whinny. She planted herself between the truck and the men, hooves digging into the mud, eyes blazing. Crane laughed. "Move the horse!" One of his men lunged forward, waving a rope. Solace reared, white mane whipping, and charged. Her hooves struck the ground with thunder. The man fell back, cursing, as Solace wheeled and kicked, scattering the attackers. Crane's men hesitated, none eager to take on the wild mare. The twins watched, awestruck and terrified, as Solace became a shield of living fury. Jean threw open his door. "Anna, now! Get the girls out!" Anna grabbed the diary and the bundle of documents, thrusting them into Edith's arms. "Take these! Run for the gate!" Avery shoved open the back door, pulling Isla after her. The two girls bolted into the darkness, Edith close behind. Anna and John jumped out, Anna clutching John's arm as they followed. Crane snarled and shouted, "After them! Don't let them reach the house!" The attackers surged forward, flashlights swinging wildly. Solace spun, forcing a gap between the men and the fleeing family. Avery ran with Isla through the trees, feet pounding the soft earth, lungs burning with panic. Edith's voice urged them onward. The gate, there up ahead, a wooden arch appeared in the gloom. Willow Hollow's main entrance, the promise of safety flickering just beyond. The air was filled with shouting, the crash of footsteps, Solace's fierce cries. Suddenly, one of Crane's men burst from the trees and grabbed Edith's shoulder, spinning her around. She struggled, dropping the diary. Avery turned, teeth clenched, and swung her fist, catching the man in the jaw. He staggered back, stunned. Edith grabbed the diary, shouting at the girls to run. Avery dragged Isla through the gate, hearts racing. Anna and Jean emerged from the brush, faces streaked with sweat and fear. They saw the twins just inside the arch, Edith clutching the diary, Crane's men closing in. Anna screamed, "Get away from them!" Solace charged again, this time taking a blow to her flank from a heavy flashlight. She stumbled but kept coming, forcing the men to retreat. Blood stained her white coat, but she did not falter. She positioned herself between the family and their attackers, nostrils flaring. Crane's patience snapped. "Take them! I don't care about the horse!" He surged forward just as the sound of approaching vehicles echoed from the other side of the estate. Headlights swept through the trees. Rebecca Leclerc and her legal team, the sheriff, townsfolk who'd finally chosen a side. Crane's men faltered, caught between the new arrivals and Solace's wrath. Solace lunged at Crane, forcing him back. The family made their final dash through the open gate, Anna and Jean hauling Avery and Isla into Rebecca's arms. Edith, breathless but unbowed, pressed the diary into Rebecca's hands. The gate slammed shut behind them. Solace, battered and bleeding, collapsed just inside the entrance. Avery and Isla rushed to her side, tears streaming down their faces. Avery knelt, hands trembling. No, Solace, please. Stay with us. You can't leave." The white mare's breath came shallow and slow. Isla cradled her head, whispering a lullaby. Anna, Jean, Edith, and Rebecca stood guard, forming a wall between the family and the chaos beyond. Crane and his men, outnumbered and disarmed, were forced to their knees by the sheriff and townsfolk. The storm that had threatened for so long had finally broken. As the moon rose over Willow Hollow, the family clung to each other, grief and gratitude mingling in the cold night air. Solace's eyes closed for the last time, her spirit lingering in the hush. Avery stroked her mane, whispering thanks. Isla pressed her cheek to the mare's neck, singing the lullaby Anna once sang to her. In that moment, every sorrow and hope, every fear and act of courage, bound the family together. The battle had left scars, but the worst had passed. Solace had bought them their freedom, with love, with sacrifice, and with the power that only the wildest of hearts can claim. Morning broke cold and clear over Willow Hollow, casting the battered estate in sharp relief. The sun caught the broken fence, the muddy footprints, the flecks of blood marking where Solace had fallen. But inside the house, a new sense of hope rose with the light. The Bennetts, the twins, Edith, and their allies gathered in the parlor, hearts raw but spirits unbroken. Outside, Sheriff Talbot's deputies kept Crane and his men cuffed and under watch, their threats turning to silence beneath the weight of the evidence now swirling inside. Rebecca Leclerc, tall and determined, moved through the house with the poise of someone born to command a storm. She paused by Isla, who sat clutching a strand of Solace's mane, and gently touched the girl's shoulder. "You're safe now, both of you, I promise." Avery nodded, her face streaked with tears but set with a new kind of strength. Anna squeezed her hand. Across the room, John stood with Edith, passing around the diary and the battered bundle of documents. "It's all here," Edith said, voice hoarse from the night's ordeal. Evelyn's diary, the coded entries, proof of embezzlement, fraud, threats. Victoria Grant did everything she could to erase her sister and claim the girls for herself. But Evelyn fought back, and so did these girls. Rebecca opened the diary for Sheriff Talbot, pointing to the entries. Money moved between accounts, coded messages, and, most damning, a confession Evelyn had written and hidden in the margins. There was even a key taped to the back page, the one referenced in the code. That key unlocks a deposit box in Helena, Rebecca explained. And in it are original birth certificates, audio recordings, and the legal papers proving Avery and Isla are Evelyn's daughters. Not Victoria's, not anyone else's. Sheriff Talbot scratched his chin, looking from the papers to the twins, then out the window where Crane sat seething. His voice was grave. This is more evidence than I ever dreamed I'd see, and it's going to court now. But what about Victoria Grant? Where is she? A hush fell over the room as the answer walked through the front door. Victoria Grant, her hair in disarray, eyes wild and desperate, stormed into Willow Hollow. For a moment, even the law seemed to hesitate. She marched straight toward the twins, ignoring everyone else, her voice cracking. "You don't understand. They're mine. I had to protect them. No one else could." Avery stood, pulling Isla up beside her, her gaze steady. "You hurt us. You hurt Mama. You lied." Victoria staggered, her voice collapsing into a sob. "I did what I thought was right. I was scared. I couldn't let Evelyn ruin everything. Not after all she put us through." Rebecca moved between her nieces and her sister-in-law, her own voice calm but unyielding. "Victoria, it's over. There's nothing left to take. The girls are with family. You need to answer for what you've done." Victoria's hands trembled, her mask of control shattering. She sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. "Please, I never wanted to hurt them. I lost everything." Isla stepped forward, surprising everyone. Her voice was small but clear. "You're still our aunt. I wish things could have been different. But I want you to get help. Not just for us, but for yourself." Even the sheriff's hard face softened at that. For a moment, the room held its breath. Grief, rage, mercy, and exhaustion tangled together. Anna moved to Isla's side, her arm around both girls, and met Victoria's gaze with quiet resolve. "We all want what's best for Avery and Isla. But that means telling the truth, facing what's been done, and giving them the life Evelyn wanted for them. You can't undo the past, but you can stop running from it." Victoria wept, her fight gone. Rebecca stepped forward, gently taking her arm. "Come with me. We'll make sure you're safe, too. But you have to answer for your choices." Sheriff Talbot nodded to his deputies, and Victoria allowed herself to be led outside. The townsfolk who had gathered on the front lawn watched in silence as the woman who had cast such a long shadow over Willow Creek was finally brought low, not with vengeance, but with a kind of sorrowful compassion. Inside, the room was quiet except for the ticking of the clock and the low voices of the girls. Avery clung to Isla, her whole body trembling. "It's really over, right?" John placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "She can't hurt you anymore. You're safe now." Rebecca knelt in front of the twins. "I'm your aunt. I'll fight for you, just like your mother did. You'll have a home here with me and with the Bennetts. Family isn't just who you're born to. It's who stands by you when the world goes dark." As word spread through Willow Creek of Victoria's confession and Crane's arrest, the town was forced to look inward. Some neighbors wept with relief and shame, remembering how they had turned away or whispered warnings instead of stepping up. Others came forward, apologizing, offering help. Edith organized a gathering for the children and their supporters. Pastor Ruth spoke of courage and redemption, her words ringing out across the green fields. That evening, as the sun set in ribbons of gold and pink, Anna, Jean, Avery, Isla, Rebecca, and their circle stood together at the place where Solace had fallen. Avery pressed wildflowers into the mare's mane. Isla traced a melody on her flute, and the wind carried their song through the grass. "Thank you," Avery whispered, "for saving us. We'll never forget you." The white mare's legacy would live on in every act of courage, every truth finally spoken, and every heart healed by kindness. Justice had been served, but the real victory was the new beginning growing from the ashes of old secrets. Winter faded slowly into spring at Willow Hollow, and with it, the pain of the past began to thaw. The days grew longer, the meadows brightened with new grass and wildflowers, and the heavy silence that had haunted the estate lifted a little more with every sunrise. Even the wind sounded different, gentler, more hopeful, carrying with it the voices of children and the distant echo of piano music. Victoria Grant was gone. The courts had ordered her into psychiatric care after her confession, and for the first time in years, the twins could sleep through the night without fear of sudden footsteps or harsh words in the dark. Rebecca Leclerc, steady, compassionate, and fiercely protective, became their legal guardian. But the bonds that had grown between the Bennets and the girls would not be so easily untied. Anna and Jean remained a second set of parents, their love and support a constant presence in the girls' lives. Willow Hollow, once somber and closed off, was reborn. With Rebecca's encouragement, Anna's vision took shape. She proposed turning the estate into a sanctuary for at-risk children, a place where music, art, and horses could help heal wounds far deeper than anyone could see. The idea sparked something in the town that had once looked away. Neighbors who had kept their distance returned with open hearts, volunteering time and resources to bring the vision to life. They started small. The first week, Anna and Jean built new stalls in the barn, then invited children from nearby foster homes to visit. Pastor Ruth and Edith organized music lessons in the parlor, filling the halls with song and laughter. Even the most reluctant children warmed up quickly when greeted by the gentle, patient horses, descendants of Solace, whose story had already become legend in Willow Creek. The white mares were watchful, loving, as if they understood that every child who reached out to them carried old bruises that needed mending. Avery flourished in this new world. Freed from fear, she threw herself into helping Anna with the horses, learning everything from brushing manes to calming anxious colts. She especially loved working with a young white mare named Hope, a spirited foal with her mother's wild eyes and gentle heart. Isla found her place at the piano and in the art room, her music drawing even the shyest children to her side. She played lullabies for the little ones who cried at night, and painted murals of fields and wild horses along the walls, her old anxieties softening into joy. The house was rarely quiet. Mornings began with the clatter of breakfast and ended with laughter around the big kitchen table. Rebecca, who had spent so many years apart from family, reveled in the chaos, learning to make pancakes with Isla and trading stories with John about the old days. Sometimes, Anna would catch her standing at the window, watching the children run through the fields and see tears of happiness in her eyes. Healing wasn't instant or easy. There were setbacks, nightmares, panic attacks, days when Avery still flinched at raised voices or Isla retreated into silence. Some children brought to Willow Hollow arrived angry and suspicious, scarred by loss and betrayal. But the circle around them held steady. Anna's patience, Jean's humor, Rebecca's calm, Ruth's prayers, and Edith's stories. They faced the hard days together, believing that even the deepest wounds could knit together, given enough time and care. One afternoon, as the air filled with the scent of lilacs and new hay, the whole community gathered in the barn for a dedication ceremony. Anna stood in front of the crowd, her voice trembling with gratitude. We started this with nothing but a prayer and a promise. Today, because of all of you, Willow Hollow is a home. Not just for Avery and Isla, but for every child who needs a place to belong. We remember Solace, who showed us the meaning of courage and hope. May we honor her, by never turning away from a lost soul in need. A hush fell as Avery stepped forward, leading Hope into the circle. The young mare nuzzled her shoulder, and Avery spoke, clear, strong, no longer afraid. We all have scars. Some you can see, some you can't. But here we help each other heal. Thank you for giving us a second chance. The crowd erupted in applause. Pastor Ruth led everyone in song. Edith passed out cookies, and the children spun and danced beneath the loft, free in a way they'd never known before. As dusk fell, Rebecca tucked Isla and Avery into bed in their new shared room, painted with swirling blues and whites to look like clouds and mustangs. Isla yawned, curling close to her sister. Do you think Mama would be proud of us? Avery smiled, tucking the blankets under Isla's chin. I know she would. She wanted us to be safe, and now we're helping others feel safe too. That's the best way to remember her. In the quiet, Anna played a lullaby on the piano in the parlor. John checked the locks and looked out over the fields where the white mares grazed under the stars. Pastor Ruth walked the garden paths, whispering blessings. Edith stayed up late with a new group of children, reading stories by flashlight. Willow Hollow had become more than a sanctuary. It was a beacon, a place where compassion was stronger than fear, where belonging was offered to anyone willing to reach out, and where hope grew as wild and resilient as the horses in the fields. And as Avery drifted off to sleep, she heard the faint sound of hoofbeats in her dreams, a gentle reminder that even in a world full of shadows, there would always be guardians watching and a place to call home. Years slipped by at Willow Hollow, each season leaving its own mark on the land, the house, and the lives of everyone it sheltered. The estate, once somber and haunted by secrets, had blossomed into a sanctuary humming with new purpose, a place where sorrow was met with understanding, fear with comfort, and every broken heart found the space to mend. Avery looked out over the pastures on a bright summer morning, the sun climbing over the rolling hills and gilding the grass with gold. She was older now, taller, stronger, her hair longer and usually tied back in a braid she'd learned to do herself. Isla stood beside her, grown into a confident young woman, her laugh carrying across the fields as she called to the younger children. Their eyes were still strikingly blue. Their faces still reflected the echo of the mother they had lost. But there was light in their expressions, joy that had once seemed impossible. Everywhere Avery turned, she saw evidence of what they'd built from the ruins of their past. The old barn was now painted a cheerful red, the stalls filled with white mares and their foals. Children ran laughing between the pastures, braiding wildflowers into manes and learning how to care for the horses, many of whom traced their lineage back to Solace, the wild mare who had changed everything. On the porch, Anna and John sat rocking in their chairs, watching over the children with the easy affection of true family. Rebecca, too, had found her place, her legal work now devoted entirely to protecting and expanding the sanctuary's mission. Willow Hollow had become famous far beyond the borders of Willow Creek. Families from distant towns and even other states sent children who needed refuge, healing, or simply a fresh start. Reporters sometimes visited, drawn by the legend of the spirit horse, and always left with tears in their eyes. There was a sense of magic to the place, but those who lived and worked there knew it was no miracle, just the steady, stubborn work of love and the bravery to keep opening their doors day after day. Avery sometimes volunteered to speak with the new arrivals, sharing her story with those who needed courage most. On this particular morning, as a group of nervous children stood by the gate, Avery knelt to their level and smiled. I was scared when I first came here too, she told them, her voice gentle. But you're safe now. If you feel lost, just look for the white mares. They always seem to know when someone needs a friend." The children smiled, some shy, some hopeful, as Hope, a mare with a mane as pale as moonlight, stepped forward and let them stroke her nose. Inside the house, Isla played the piano, her melodies drifting through the halls. She led music therapy sessions, helping the children find their voices and their calm. Her gentle encouragement and laughter filled every corner of the house. In the afternoons, she painted with the youngest, her murals covering every available wall with scenes of wild horses, glowing rivers, and families gathered under the sun. Anna and Jean had aged, but their hearts seemed only to grow larger with each year. Anna organized everything: meals, lessons, barn chores, with the same gentle firmness she'd shown Avery and Isla on that first trembling morning. Jean could fix anything: broken toys, fence rails, even hurt feelings, with a joke or a quiet word. Rebecca, the woman who had once been a distant figure in the girls' lives, now felt like a second mother. She handled the legal work that kept Willow Hollow running, but she also made time for the children, teaching them chess, listening to their worries, and standing up for them in every way that mattered. There were still difficult days. Some children arrived withdrawn, angry, or haunted by memories of places that were not safe. The staff, many of them former residents, knew how to be patient, how to wait for the moment a child would finally reach out for comfort. It wasn't always easy. There were tears, sleepless nights, old wounds that opened in new ways, but no one was left to face their pain alone. The community stood as a circle, strong and unwavering, around every lost soul. One summer evening, on the anniversary of Solace's sacrifice, the whole community gathered for a celebration in the fields. Lanterns glowed beneath the trees. Tables were set with food from every family who'd ever been touched by Willow Hollow. Pastor Ruth led a blessing, her voice ringing out clear and steady. Edith, gray-haired and bright-eyed, recited the legend of the white mare to a circle of wide-eyed children. At dusk, Avery stood before everyone, her heart full as she looked out at the faces, old and young, family and friends, people who had once been strangers but were now unbreakably connected. Family isn't just blood. It's sacrifice, trust, and finding hope together, she began, her voice steady, the crowd silent and attentive. We're all here because of a miracle. But the real magic is what we choose every day. We choose kindness, even when it's hard. We choose to stand up for each other. We choose to believe that healing is possible, no matter how lost you feel. She paused, looking at Isla, who smiled back with shining eyes. Solace showed us that courage sometimes looks like running into the storm, not away from it. She saved us, and because of her, we're able to save others. Her legacy lives on in every horse that runs these fields, in every laugh and every tear, in every home we help to build for someone who needs it. The children released white lanterns into the sky, each carrying a silent wish. As they floated upward, the white mares of Willow Creek gathered at the edge of the pasture, their coats glowing in the twilight. Some people said they saw Solace herself that night, her spirit lingering at the edge of the world, watching as hope blossomed from sorrow. Avery closed her eyes, letting the wind brush her face. She remembered her mother's voice, the river's roar, Solace's gentle strength, and she whispered her own message to anyone who needed it. If Solace's story touched your heart, share it, because hope, like love, is meant to be passed on. Real healing and change happen when a community chooses compassion, stands up to fear, and gives every lost soul a chance to belong. As the last lantern vanished into the stars, Willow Hollow glowed with light, laughter, and the unbreakable promise that here no one would ever be lost or alone again.